Hello everyone, and welcome to our cartography lecture video. And in this lecture video, we're going to begin our discussion on data and classification. So this is a very broad topic, and we're not going to be able to cover every single aspect of it. But what I want to do is I want to highlight some of the more important pieces and give you some background on how those pieces work and some ideas of when and how to implement these different strategies. I also want to make clear that when we're talking about data in this case, we're talking about numeric data that would be associated with something like an attribute table, not the spatial data in terms of vector and raster. So what we're going to talk about in this module is going to be four things. The first thing we're going to talk about is going to be types of data, or you could call these data categories. All right, and we're going to be talking about the differences between nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, which are the big four categories of data that you need to be familiar with, because each level, sometimes you can call these levels, right? Each level of data is going to allow you to do different things. For example, you can do a lot more with ratio data than you can with ordinal data. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be data presentation and statistics. Data presentation and statistics. So we're going to examine sort of how we visualize data by looking at tables and histograms. And then we're going to look at how we can examine data from a statistics point of view by talking about things like central tendency, and dispersion. So central tendency is going to be talking about things like mean and median, and dispersion is going to be talking about things like standard deviation and interquartile range, as some examples. And then finally, we're going to wrap up our discussion by talking about classification. And essentially, classification in this context is going to be how can we group data together into meaningful classes that will allow us to transition from raw data into classified maps that we can then build into thematic maps, which is going to be the focus of the rest of the semester. Is going to be focused around generating maps from actual attribute data. So in classification, we're basically going to talk about the main classification methods. So we're going to talk about equal interval, quantile, maximum breaks, natural breaks, and standard deviation. Standard deviation. Right, these 5 different methods are going to be the ones that you're almost always going to come across in ArcGIS Pro and in other geospatial softwares that are going to allow you to take, again, that raw data, break it up into meaningful groups, which we can then take and apply to any sort of thematic mapping approach that we're going to talk about starting in the next module. So again, just to recap, these are the sort of topics that we're going to cover in this module. We're going to cover types of data, presentation and basic statistics, and types of classification. So hopefully this all makes sense. And as always, if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.